Well, what is going on, everybody? Welcome everybody into the Overreaction Buffalo postgame show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe. My name is Joe Miller. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired. It's so good to have you. I'm hearing an echo, and I don't know what that is. But
I got it fixed.
I thought it was me because I have another screen.
You're more like the ears, Joe Miller, not the voice,
The
Joe
voice.
Miller. Yes.
Sitting alongside my co-host for this here, it seems like my regular co-host for post-game shows, the inevitable Jerry Ostrowski, former Buffalo Bill offensive lineman. Jerry, so do us all a favor. Please please subscribe, whatever platform you are consuming this podcast on. Please please subscribe. Please tell a friend. If you are consuming this in post as a podcast, also please please subscribe. But we are very excited that you are here with us, even though it wasn't necessarily the outcome that we had wanted. The Buffalo Bills roll into Baltimore 3-0 to face the 1-2 Baltimore Ravens, who, weeks 1 and 2 in the NFL, as we know, are a liar. Probably weren't playing up necessarily to the par that they probably feel that they should be playing at. And the Buffalo Bills have shocked us, I would say, being at 3-0 this early in the season. However, they go into Baltimore, and I don't want to say that they didn't show up, Jerry, because there was life there. It wasn't like they ran for the bus after the first quarter,
Right.
But there wasn't a ton of good, right?
No. The game, pretty much the things that happened were the things that I was nerved up about most of the week. I've talked about it at length on these shows and also my shows about I just worry about sometimes our defense and their lack of size when they face, physicality like they faced tonight from the Ravens. And the Ravens didn't disappoint. They lined up. They punched the Bills in the face, so to speak.
Yeah, very much.
And I will say this, and this is the thing: if you're tuning in to get this, fire and brimstone speech about how horrible the Bills are, you're not going to get that from me. Now, if this was week 16 or 17, maybe so. It's week 4. Yeah. And while this game did not go particularly the way that we wanted it to go at all, there were good signs in this game that the Bills have a lot of good pieces in place. Obviously, they did not handle the Ravens' physicality. And the other thing that really, really bothered them was, and we talked about it, I had Daniel Wilcox on this week from the Ravens Believe Network, and he got some grief for what he had to say, but he was dead on. And it's the fact that they have athletes all over the field on offense, and they can come at you in power. They can spread it out and run college concepts with zone reads and stuff with Lamar. And they did that tonight. And obviously, you don't want to give up a 79-yarder on the first play of the game.
It was 84. Was it
84?
Yeah,
84.
It was
the wrinkle. Yeah, the wrinkle that they put in with the blocking scheme, everybody down inside. They took the H inside to seal the tackle, and they let group play contain and just walled them off. Was a really, really good concept. Bills had problems up the middle. Like I always worry about them having issues up the middle. Then they also had problems defending the flat and the C gap. I mean, the Ravens did a wonderful job. Todd Monk and their OC just attacking that flat. But there were some things tonight that I thought were good. Their fight being one of them. They didn't lay down and didn't give up. That's one very, very positive thing to come from this game. But no, this isn't going to be a doom and gloom thing or a post-game show. Yes, it's disappointing, but there are still things to look forward to as this season moves on.
I think there was just a lot of confusion for me as far as in respect to what we saw in this football game. And it's funny because people in the comment section, and welcome to everybody in the comment section. We appreciate all of you that are here. Adam LaFaro, who actually spent the whole evening with us in the Discord chat, the new Discord chat that we have. Dave Allen, Michael Karanidzik, Koala Bear Khan. I haven't seen you in a long time. Welcome. Scott Blakely. Tim S. There's a bunch of you, Ralph Wilson Sr. and Scott Blakely is challenging me on when I said that we did see some signs of life. There was some signs of life that was quickly squashed by the worst razzle-dazzle call you've ever seen in your entire life. But at the end of the day, I think what's confusing to me, and for those that don't know, we started a Discord channel uh, effectively an opportunity for us to connect with you guys, build a community around this thing. I'm a big Buffalo Bills message board guy going back to like the early 2000s. And I do miss a lot of that, the characteristics and the community that was there. And there isn't really a whole lot of that around anymore. And then I kind of caught wind that there's a couple of Discord channels out there. So we went ahead and did one, and we have a live game day thread in there. And in that game day thread in that Discord channel, Jerry, you were just talking about the fact that, you know, the Buffalo Bill, and I didn't even notice it. And I think that's the biggest difference between football players, right? You and the casual fan, probably no matter how educated, skilled, no matter where I'm at. I didn't even pick up on the fact that the Bills offense, I don't want to use the word vanilla, but when you just talked about the fact that they used a completely new blocking scheme with the whole H, whatever you said, and dropped the open, you mentioned in the Discord chat that like the Bills weren't doing anything that got them to 3-0 this season. They did no motions. They did no misdirections. They did no smoke and mirror plays. They did really, outside of the one ridiculous razzle dazzle that almost ended our season when Josh Allen got hit by a semi truck. And I was more worried about his elbow and his arm with his arm whipping forward without the football than I was about the check block that he took that threw him into the ground.
Yes.
That's the part that I don't get. And I think as a fan, a casual fan, that I get lost in, because how do you do all of that and then come into this game, both on offense and defense, in a very, let's see what's going to happen kind of momentum, versus where you've been, which is very much dictating to your previous opponents. And one of those opponents, the Miami Dolphins, isn't exactly a laydown. Like the Dolphins, they're not as physical as the Ravens, but they're a high flying, like a team that could put 40 on you pretty easily, pretty quick. Like before you bat an eye, they've got 40 points on you.
Right.
I'm just confused as to what we watched, and I thank you for pointing it out to us that were in the chat today.
Right, and I'm not quite sure what Brady's reasoning was, but as far as the shifts, the motions, and all of those things that were so prevalent in the first 3 games, they pretty much were out the window. They started the game with a lot of that quick pass stuff, getting the tight ends involved, getting Kincaid involved, and they were doing some of that stuff, but it was out of stagnant sets. When I say stagnant, I mean coming out of the huddle, lining up, very little motion. Every now and then they would send a guy across to see if they're getting man or zone. The Ravens are a team that plays a lot of man underneath. They play zone over the top with help. They'll bracket. The term they use is bracket the wide receivers. And I believe the way the Ravens played this game was, it was funny. Like, I don't think they respected the Bills wideouts to beat them over the top, just being able to run routes. And they were going to sit and do what they did until the Bills proved otherwise, because they have given up some big plays in the pass game in the first 3 games. Didn't seem that they were too worried about it today. I thought the Bills did a good job early running the football, and then they did it again in the second half when they came out and started to get momentum before we decided to draw up the trick play in the sand into the boundary to boot and about get our franchise quarterback, and I was with you, Joe. I wasn't worried about the hit. Josh is 6'5", whatever. I was worried about his arm and that UCL again, the way that arm angle was, and, the abrupt stop of the passing motion. But it was kind of puzzling to me. And the other aspect of this is when you get behind like this, when you get behind and you need points, all of a sudden the defense is pinning their ears back. The offensive line's put in a bad spot. They did a lot of pressures. The Ravens did with safeties and stuff outside. If you realized or you watched, Josh never really had that clean. A lot of times Josh will break contain and get easy first downs running outside. He never had that clear lane outside. They did a great job of rushing the outside shoulder of Josh Allen to keep him inside of the defense. Just, really masterful job by that Ravens D. But again, why was it that way? I just don't think that the Bills ever made them feel uncomfortable one time, except for maybe early in that second half.
So is it a situation where the Bills knew what they were going to get from the Ravens defense? I mean, a lot of times, obviously, a lot of that motion stuff is to identify what's happening. And even as I say that, I think I know the answer, because last week, the Jaguars ran mostly man. They're a man defense. Meanwhile, the Bills kept running guys and like moving guys all over to identify man, even though they knew they were going to get man from that defense. So even when I asked the question, is it because they knew what they were going to get from the Ravens that they weren't necessarily doing all the candy, the eye candy stuff inside the simple concepts that got them to where they were this season that Dan Orlovsky talked a lot about? I'm just confused as to who makes that decision, because clearly Sean McDermott is in the meetings when the game plans are put together and there's an agreement upon this is what we're going to do. It's hard for me to believe that the Joe Brady or Bobby Babbage came in, whoever the first one was, or maybe they were together, but whoever spoke first said, I think we're going to go conservative or vanilla or whatever that was we saw. And Sean said, I think that's the best idea. And then the other guy said, yeah, me too. And he said, yeah, that's probably the best. I'm just, and you've been in not that meeting, but you've been at least in the game planning meetings. I just don't know how we got, I just don't know how that's what we watched. I'm just confused.
It was almost like I think the Bills were really trying to control tempo of the game and really trying to control things as far as the way they were calling plays and what they were doing. I felt like they were worried about it getting away from them, and it did. Yeah, but I don't think it got away from them the way that they thought it might. I mean, defensively, they just were lost the first half. You know, Baltimore, and again, we talked about it. If you want to beat Baltimore, how do you do it? Lamar's got to throw the ball over 25 times, throw the ball 30 times, and you got a really good chance of beating them.
Yep.
Lamar threw it 18 times tonight. So they obviously were well within what they want to do. They controlled everything. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, unless I'm in that meeting, I don't know why. They didn't decide to do a lot of the stuff that they did in the past.
They come into a football game, and Spence and I talked about it on the Hump Day Hotline because it's a running joke. I mean, with this game, they trot out Derrick Henry, who you can go back to every game we played against Derrick Henry, and people are like, oh, you look at them numbers, holy smokes, like he's averaging 130 yards on you guys every single game. No, you take away the 170-yard run he has every freaking game against us, and he's averaging about 50. Like, they bottle him up most of the game. Now, this game, he broke away a couple other times, but generally they do a good job of bottling him up. But you would think, I know this isn't supposed to be doom and gloom, but it's starting to.
Well, yeah, Henry had 200 yards of rushing,
almost. Yeah, that was the win of the game. The fact that they didn't put him in the Hall of Fame tonight.
84 of it came in one run. Okay, 84 of it came in one run. But again, the thing that the Ravens did so well was they did a lot of the stuff that we had been doing in the first three games. Our poor linebackers and young safeties, their heads were spinning
big time.
They attacked the flats and the C gap as good as I've seen.
Yeah.
Just quick outs, receivers upfield blocking. We just had no answer for any of it. And, but it just goes to show you again, they have Likely, they have Lamar, they have a 6'4", 250-some pound tailback. And then they take him out and they put Justice Hill in, who's an absolute slasher. They've got Jones.
He was running like he hates Buffalo. That dude was running like he hates our city. Yeah.
You got Zay, you got all these weapons all over the place.
Yeah.
And they just did not have any feel for keeping that group contained. And then you saw the Bills go to zone later, and they just kept hitting those 25-yard out routes, or just sit in the soft spot of the zone, and were completing the ball. Because then again, Lamar was never off spot very much. It was amazing how all of a sudden in the third quarter, when we started getting momentum and the D-line started picking up pass rush, then those throws got rushed a little bit. But, the Ravens just controlled everything from start to finish.
Right. And Ralph Wilson Sr. says 199 for Henry. Yay. My comment was apparently it would have been his seventh, I think. Is that what they said in the broadcast? 200-yard game, which would have, I think, it would be the most 200-yard games by a running back. And they mentioned it was O.J. Simpson, and who was the other? Then they mentioned another guy that have done that as well. But it was a mess from top to bottom. But it wasn't. They didn't beat the brakes off of us. When I consider the last time the Bills lost a game like this, I believe it was against the Colts, when Jonathan Taylor is still running against us and gaining 20 yards a clip. It was Dickerson, right, Mike? That was the last time the Bills got, and I went on a huge diatribe. And I refrained from it, and I don't feel that the diatribe is necessary. When the Bills lost to the Colts, I think it was the Colts, where he had Jonathan Taylor had, it was like 220 yards or 235 yards. It was insane. And I was very mad because the Bills never came out of the nickel 4-2. You and I've talked about this. And McDermott's comments after the game, when he was asked, he was like, "Did you ever consider coming out of your base defense?" And he said no. And I was like, what were you expecting to change? I mean, how many times are you going to let this happen to you inside of a 60-minute football game before you're like, maybe we should do so? And he did end up changing as that season progressed, when running backs came at him that were a little bit more physical. This team is, I don't want to say has always had a problem with physical running backs, but I'm not going to say anything you don't know already.
Again, I mean, there's a couple of nationals that, Mina Kimes made a point on Twitter, and she made a very good observation, and it's stuff talked about forever, except she used, a nouveau term, spine of the defense.
Right. Yeah.
For us dummies, we say up the middle, but when you're on ESPN, you say spine of the defense.
Right.
It's all about lots of words and terms and everything that makes you sound smarter than others. But the spine of the defense, or the middle of the defense. And then I believe it was Nate Geary talked about, and I'm giving him credit as well on Twitter, he talked about how, like us, the Cowboys defense was also undersized. They like to play more of that 4-2-5. When you force the Bills to play 3 linebackers, that gets out of what they want to do. And again, it goes back to the same beginnings of, you worry about that undersized defense against really, really physical. This is the first time in a while, and Dorian's doing a good job for a second-year player, but his pass coverage intricacies probably aren't as good as others. And this is the first time that I really felt, more so than Bernard, and I think Bernard's one of those irreplaceable pieces, but Milano would have done a much better job with covering the flat and the C gap and those types of things,
sure.
As opposed to the 2 young guys. I mean, props to them. They're playing their guts out. Dorian leads the team in tackles, but these are the types of games where you need those vet guys, the guys who are making all the money.
Did you? So Smoot kicked that guy in the head.
He wouldn't play.
Did he come back in the game?
I think so. And that's a dumb, selfish move. That's his dumb football.
Yeah, yeah. So strange. Anyway, I don't know why I just thought about that, but that was just one of the things that I just thought about in a second. And Dorian Williams, I feel like Taylor Rapp got hurt and it was my fault. If you remember in the chat, like Dorian Williams goes at Derrick Henry and he tackles his shoulders, which is the one thing you don't want to do on that dude, because he's just going to shed you. He pushed him out of bounds, which was fine. And then I put in the Discord chat, I was like, don't tackle his shoulders. And then Taylor Rapp went at his knees the very next play, knocked out. It's like, all right, never mind. maybe you should just tackle his shoulders.
Right. I mean, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, right?
Lamar was on, his guys were open, he was hitting him. There was a couple bad throws that he had, right? I mean, it was, and I felt like there were some drops for the Bills, and somebody just put in the comment section as well here on the show, that if we had MVP Josh, we don't lose that game. And I don't know that this game isn't Josh's fault as much as it's not Tyler Bass's fault either, right? I mean,
you got to have guys open to throw to.
Without
analyzing the film 5 seconds after it's over, I don't see that he missed a bunch of wide open receivers.
There was a level you talked about, they were trying to control the game in the beginning with those quick passes to the flats. I felt like there was it just felt odd to me. But
that's their MO. It's hit the short stuff, hit the short stuff, hit the short stuff, run it. Then you got Hamilton, who is the best safety in the league right now, downhill. Next thing you know, he's not playing center field. He's rolling downhill. You get somebody over top.
Right.
That's the way they're going to have to make big plays. They're not going to just line up in 3-4 wides and just go downfield and beat people. It's not how they're built yet. Now, I saw some good things out of Keon. Keon's got to catch that ball, but what we were told Keon can do, the last couple of weeks, you've seen Keon do exactly that. Now,
Yes.
he needs to catch that ball, but that ball that he dropped wasn't the difference maker if we won or lost. My biggest issue, and I'm going to finally bring it up because we haven't talked about it yet, is I have an issue in games like this, and it's been kind of historical, and I don't think believe me, this is not McDermott thing tonight. I thought McDermott did a good job. He managed the game. He was talking to the officials. He let his assistants coach. That's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
But the flea flicker call while you're running the football and you got momentum and you got a chance to make it tight, that's a panic call. And not only is it a panic call, you run it into the boundary.
Yeah,
and you about get your quarterback killed. And there was nothing about it that was positive.
Yeah, setting up that sequence of events. Halftime ends, they come out. It was a 3 and out, if I'm not mistaken, right? The Bills are a little bit harried or whatever.
Yeah.
He makes that hero ball throw, which you were talking about how it's one of the best throws you've ever seen.
I've never seen anybody do anything like that.
Right,
that was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous. Shakir catches the football, they score, an immediate turnover, not on downs, but an immediate. They get the ball back immediately, and then they're ripping off huge chunks of runs, and it's like the momentum has swung. Like, we score here, and we are in this football game.
Right.
And I blinked, and I looked up. I think I took a note, and I looked up, and I'm like, Curtis Samuel's the quarterback. And then he snapped the ball and took off up the TV screen. And there was a measure for me. He was like, what's happening right now? And then you saw them crush in they kind of crush in. They invaded the line on that side. And then he panically just threw it at Josh. Here, you take it. Josh should have eaten the football. He should have Tom Brady'd it and hit the ground. Peyton Manning just hit the ground with the football, right?
You saw two teams that do one thing better than any team in the league. And this isn't a slight, but this is an observation, and this is how it is. The Bills and the Ravens front run better than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
When they get going, you can't stop them.
Right.
And the fact that the Bills were able to come out of the locker room, get some stops, get a touchdown, find a way to get back in it, and all of a sudden the Ravens are reeling a little bit, and then we pull out, you're the bottle cap, you're the piece of glass. You run to the 8th Street bus. We're going to open the door. I'll fake it to you.
You run to the puddle. You run to the puddle and turn around.
And it's like, why?
Yeah.
With 8 minutes to go in the third quarter and another quarter left.
There's no reason.
There's a lot of time.
Yeah, and the funny part is there was an aspect of them, they were trying to slow the game. I complained about them slowing the game down, and I didn't mean they were taking all the time on the clock, but I was like, okay, now's not the time just to commit to the run, and hopefully, because you still got to stop them on the other side. If you go down and score here, you still got to stop them. If they score, then you're back into. I just wanted a little more urgency than we got, and then that stupid play happened.
And of course, my smartassness came out and messaged right back. Well, they just sped it up for you, Joe. How's that?
Yeah, that was
no. I mean, and John will tell you. If John was on, he would tell you there is no worse feeling than playing and then throw prime time into it, playing on the road against a very, very athletic pass rushing type defense, and you are down, and they know you got to throw it. Everybody knows you got to throw it. There is no worse feeling than that. Yeah. And it just, you finally are getting that deal where you got it settled down and you got the brakes on a little bit. And then we just go ahead and, pull one out of a hat.
All right. Let's move this thing along. So when we're talking about the stats in this game, and by the way, so we talked about the Discord thing as well. We've also entered a partnership with Homage for apparel and clothing. So you'll start seeing some of that kind of happen. I actually have a Victory Monday shirt from Homage that I was really excited to wear for this episode that I am not currently wearing because it is not going to be a Victory Monday. But we'll have some kind of some stuff, some promo codes and things like that, so you guys can get over there and we'll talk about Homage. They were founded in Columbus, Ohio, Jerry. I don't know if you knew that or not. I
did know that.
You did. So I've been to the Homage store many times right there at the Easton Town Center.
They are big supporters and fans of the New Heights.
Oh,
the
gotcha.
Kelsey brothers.
Gotcha. I was unaware completely that they were. So when I read that, I was like, oh, well, we have a little bit of a kindred spirit, but their clothing is just fantastic. So we'll be talking about that. But getting into the stats, Josh Allen in this football game, 16 of 29 for 180 yards. Mitchell Trubisky obviously went in and was 1 for 2, almost at a pick six. He almost threw a touchdown. Mitchell Trubisky did. James Cook rushing at 9 for 39 yards, average 4.3 carry. That's a respectable number in this league. Josh Allen 5 for 21, 4.2 yards a carry. Ray Davis 7 for 11. Curtis Samuel 1 for 7. Ty Johnson 1 for 3, which was a touchdown if I'm not mistaken. Khalil Shakir receiving 4 for 64 yards. Keon Coleman 3 for 51, had that big drop. Dalton Kincaid 5 for 47, who I feel like was open a lot and played a heck of a game. Dalton had some energy in this football game. James Cook was 1 for 9. Curtis Samuel 2 for 8. Mac Hollins 1 for 5. Dawson Knox he had one pass for 0 yards, it looks like. And then when you look at the team stats, again, feel free to stop me at any time. Total yards for the Buffalo Bills 236, to the Ravens 427. That's not great. Passing yards to the Bills 155, to the Ravens 156, and that's kind of what you were talking about. The way you beat the Ravens is to put Lamar Jackson in a situation where he's got to drop back and throw the ball, preferably outside the numbers, because that's usually where he's strong in the middle and is a little bit weaker on the outside. But yeah, 35 times. But, he did not have to do that in this football game. Rushing yards, the Bills 81, the Ravens 271. Yards per play 4.1 versus the Ravens 7.9. First downs, the Bills had 12. Third down efficiency 3 of 13. Fourth down efficiency 1 for 1, including that penalty. And as soon as it happened, as soon as they called the timeout, I was like, that's a penalty. That's a penalty. And it was funny to see Harbaugh. My mom is like, why is he yelling at somebody that I can't call a penalty there? And I was like, no, he's yelling at himself. I can't call a penalty or a timeout. I can't call a timeout there. So my mom was confused when she read his lips that I can't call a timeout there. I thought that was kind of cute. Mama Clark sitting on the couch next to me. Sacks allowed. The Buffalo Bills allowed 3. The Ravens allowed 1. Punts 6-4. Blah blah blah. Time of possession was about even. So those are your stats. Anything? Yeah, go ahead.
Interesting quote from Sean McDermott's post-game conference.
Yeah.
Speaking on the trick play called in the third quarter, that is something Joe and I will talk about. Something we'll learn from there. Certainly a momentum change. So obviously, Coach McDermott feels the same way we are.
Is that coach speak though? Because
no, I don't think that's coach.
If they hit that play and he puts it in the end zone,
no, you got to know McDermott, right? I mean, last year it was everybody was ranting and raving about what complimentary football, right? He is not about this type of stuff. That's why I was surprised that Smoot played again. I figured he'd sit on the side and wouldn't play after the knee to the helmet. That's stuff that he does not like.
There was a play this week. No, it wasn't this week. It was in a reel that I was watching where a similar play was done by the New England Patriots. And Josh McDaniels had a play drawn. Now, this is not seeing that play was not the very first time Sean McDermott ever saw it. So let's start there, right? And he obviously saw them line up with Curtis Samuel in the backfield and Josh Allen out wide. So he knew what was coming. And there's a reel where Edelman is talking to Josh McDaniels and some other people. It's an interview about old days, and like they had this play drawn up. It was very similar to this. It didn't go the way that it was supposed to go, but it worked. And even in that, Josh McDaniels was like, I checked with Bill to make sure. Like, we had the green light to run the play, but I even said, we're going to run it here if that's okay. And Bill said, as long as it's not on first down, like of the first drive, fine. And Josh said, I waited until we got like our very first down on that series. We got a first down on that series, and then we ran it and it worked. So I don't know that I buy that, Jerry.
Well, you can not buy it all you want. I believe it totally. That's right in context with what he always does. There's no way in holy hell that if he was told they're going to run that play that he just said run it. Especially into the damn boundary, the way they were playing contain with their rush. Everything was going outside. Their safeties and everything were running. They were running to the sidelines to keep him. If you saw all of Josh scrambles, they were where? Straight up the middle.
So you played for a head coach that was very much always, Camp Marv, right? Marv was a player's coach, but Marv was also known for being one of the most vulgar head coaches on the sideline, specifically to referees. Like there's video and footage and you can see stuff of him like ripping his headphones off. I mean, he was an excitable guy on the sideline. Was there ever a time that you saw something like this where there was a play that they had, whatever? I guess not, because you guys were so well scripted as far as like you guys ran the same 4 plays with Jim, right? There was never any like
we ran a trick play here and there, but We damn sure wouldn't run a trick play in that situation.
I was just going to ask, like, was there ever a time when something happened and Marv was like fit to be tied after it happened? Yeah, whatever. We can move on. We can move on from there.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, calling somebody an over officious jerk is not vulgar. If you want to say that Marv got on officials like he should, yeah, that's fine. And usually they were mind screwed because Marv was so damn smart.
Marv was incredible.
But to say Marv was vulgar, that means he was throwing around cuss words left and right. And
that's what
Marv was not vulgar.
That was his kind of always been the folklore around Marv.
Well, he was always you can ask John. Maybe I had my head in the sand, but I don't remember Marv being a vulgar person.
Yeah, there's a lot of Bill's memory folklore just about how Marv was so like incredibly intelligent, and when he was on the sideline, that he was a little bit cursy, like he would curse, which was always funny to me as a young kid because I was I don't think vulgar is the right word, like as far as that goes, but anyways, we can move on. So we'll ask John at a later time. So moving on to the next portion of this episode. When the Bills win, we do the Dude Awards, and it's always dude, great game, great game, dude. And when the Bills lose, we do the dude, we gotta talk. Like, come over here, dude, we gotta talk. So I'm gonna let you go first as we hand out our Dude Award for this football game. Buffalo Bills losing to the Baltimore Ravens. What was the final score? 35-10. Is that what it was? Or 30?
I've already forgot.
He's already moved on. I've got it right here. So you can go, 35-10. So you can go ahead and go first.
My dude, and I hate to do this because I like these guys. And like I said, I'm sorry, not flipping out for you tonight. It's part of it. I respect the Ravens. I think they're a hell of a franchise with a hell of a head coach and great players across the board. But my dude is when you have a guy that big that's running the ball up the middle, your two starting defensive tackles, Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver, can't have 0 tackles on the night. That is a bit of an issue. Those guys have to be a little bit more involved. And again, Daquan's a big, massive dude. Ed is this is what's so funny. We talk about Ed being an undersized defensive tackle, and what is he, 285?
Yeah.
But still, in the world of the NFL, he is. But those guys were kind of non-existent tonight, and they need to show up more.
I feel like my dude award, goes to the coaching staff. I'm not necessarily sure that whatever it was that they had planned, put in place, or how they prepped this team was right. Now, I'm not saying that had they had a different plan in place that the Ravens would not have come out and punched us in the face. I just feel like maybe we would have withstood it a little more. Maybe it could have been a little bit of a different game. The deviation, there was a clear and concise deviation from who we were. You talked about it a lot, what we've done to get to this point in the season. Again, game 4, keeping that in mind, that we did not see in this football game. But they did battle. Like you saw this team battle in the second half. The defense didn't get run out of the building. There wasn't a point where anybody was giving up and chasing plays, which you see a lot of times from teams that are kind of getting beat the way that they were. So, but I feel like for me, the Dude Award goes to the coaching staff, and I guess that would mean all 3 of them, the 2 coordinators and Sean, even though you said you felt like Sean did a good job. I'm not going to say he didn't, but my Dude Award goes probably more to the pre-gaming side of things. You follow? Track that?
Yeah, I do. I do track that. I don't agree with it totally.
It's fair.
You don't, it's the old adage, game, pre-fight plans are great until you walk in the ring and get punched in the face, right?
100%.
And they got punched in the coaches didn't have enough time to suck because the first play went 84 to the goalpost, right? So say what you will. Honestly, if if we were, privy to like a Rico case and we had, microphones stashed in the drop ceiling in one Bills drive and we were in staff meetings, the things we're talking about right now and the concerns we had about playing this Ravens team are the same concerns they had.
Right.
And there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
My thing, other than the dang trick play, one thing that I appreciated was I didn't sense any – other than that play, I thought that play was panic. That was a panic call. But I didn't sense much panic tonight. I mean, it was it felt a little different than, I mean, it was an ass beating that was in line with that Cincinnati playoff game,
Oh yeah.
but there wasn't that utter just look of like, oh my, what is, like, there was no, everybody was still
Yeah.
plodding along, and until we decided to take momentum away from ourselves,
Yeah. Beat
where we
ourselves.
had no chance. But I get what you're saying. I mean, somebody's got to take the blame for a performance like this, and it stops and starts with the head coach.
I like what you said. And I don't feel like I was at that Cincinnati game, and I don't feel like this game even remotely resembles that game. That team was just completely shell shocked, and
Right.
they were absent. And as I said, like the last really bad beatdown, the Indianapolis Colts games 3-4 years ago, this wasn't that game either. That was a game where they basically ran for the locker room. They were done before the game was over. To your point, and as far as there was no panic, we didn't see happy feet Josh, right? There wasn't a moment, but I felt like the offensive line did a good job kind of keeping him clean, keeping him upright.
They had a tough assignment tonight with the way, and I felt Van Noy was the key to their defense up front, and he didn't disappoint. I mean,
agreed.
Spencer had an all-night affair dealing with him. I mean, he's a hell of a player, and he's a long-term vet. But the difference, Joe, real quick, if you don't mind me cutting in, you didn't have that. You didn't have that guy ripping his helmet off on the sideline and throwing it on the ground and bitching at people. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a different kind of, everybody was still in it. They were still fighting to the end. They were still scratching and clawing. There was none of that disconnect or disjointedness that we've had over the past few years. So does that make the loss any better? No, but it's definitely a different feel than it's been.
Yeah, but the reality is the Bills are 3-1, which is probably ahead of where most of us thought they were going to be this time of the year, right? And they still have a difficult couple of games coming up at Houston, at the Jets. Getting to your tweets, to the Mafia tweets, I tweeted out after this game, the Buffalo Bills dropped their first game of the season to the Ravens and fall to 3-1. Hey, Bills Mafia, how does this game have you feeling? Reading your tweets in the Overreaction post-game show, which is what we're doing right now. So let me go ahead and read some of these. I'm actually going to move this over to my other screen, just so that I can see it and I don't have to jerk my head. So this is from James Alexander Perks, at Mr. J Perks 6789. Not been this disappointed by a performance in a while. Nothing seemed to work, and whenever there was a spark, it was snuffed out quickly. I never want to lose, but this is the game I would drop out. This is the game I would drop out of the next three. This is a tough loss on a tough stretch. On to Houston, go Bills. I think what he's saying is this is the toughest game of the three, which he's right. And I can't see you right now, Jerry. So if you want to say something on top of whatever I'm reading, just jump in. Okay. Anthony at Cattle Dog Dad. We'll catch the show later as I got an early work day tomorrow. Just going to be a this is just going to be short and sweet. Regroup and go Bills. Good night to you all. Well, good night to you, Anthony. Appreciate you. Bills Media 716. I'm on to Houston. We need to come out of this game relatively clean with injuries. Josh had a couple of scares, but we'll be fine. To me, we were one dumb play call by Brady away from a real good finish. Go Bills. So he is right there with you. Our guy Saxa Dave, who was in the Discord chat all night from Europe. So Dave, which was Grumpy Cabby, is actually in London. So think about how late it was for him, and he's staying awake to watch this game. He just does the gif of I don't know what to say. In Josh We Trust says watching that catastrophe was like pissing on an electric fence. I don't know if it was that bad, but it was bad. T Dill at T Ray Dill 32. Wasn't winning them all anyway. On to Houston. And I think that's probably, but the first half of that football game for me, Jerry, I was very in my feelings. And this show has been difficult for me too, kind of coming off of a loss and having the first time for me to not be able to rant a little bit because I've got you with me. I feel a little boxed, I'm not sure what to do with my hands.
Well, we should add that segment to the show, Joe. I'll sit back and watch you lose your mind.
Watch me lose my mind.
I seriously, Mike, I'm all about it. I think that's great.
By the second half, when it was pretty much inevitable after the play that we were all talking about, there was an aspect of it's the fourth game of the season. They weren't going to win them all anyway. I trust this team. I trust my coach. I trust my quarterback, kind of a situation, right? So on to Houston. Carl Music, on to the next one. Karen says it was crap. She's got 4 poop emojis. At least the L is outside of our division. Guess they'll be going 16-1. The Buffalo Bills, she means, and I like that record. That'd be great. Election was stolen. Joe Biden is a fraud. So this is at Dr. Venkman 420. That's his name. That's not. Anyways, they needed it more than us. That's absolutely true. They were 1-2. They needed this win. So there's probably a measure of fire that they came in with, right? That they needed this game. And they've been getting run on, the national media the last several weeks since the season started. We were due to get blown out after that stupid close game record we had going. I'm fine with it as long as Josh is okay. I think we're all in the same boat with that. And the last one I got from you is from Adam, who's in the chat right now. Too cute. Run the ball. Live and learn. He says, go Bills. So yeah, that's what I got for you for tweets.
I think we should do that, Joe. I'll just go to bed after these late games. And
No.
you come in and do the old school Joe, the voice, the ear, whatever we're going to call you, Miller scheme. And you just go crazy and get it out, man. I don't want you to leave this at the house all week. Everybody's miserable because dad's on edge. And,
no, it won't be that way.
Just let it go, man. I feel bad that I'm keeping this from you.
I think you forget that last year I did all these late post game shows at 7:00 the next morning. I just went to bed because I don't want to be up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning doing this whole thing and loading this stuff up. So, because they'd start an hour afterwards. I know you're kidding, giving me a hard time, but yeah, that's not a routine I want to be in as far as that goes. So,
oh no, I think it'd be a great
request denied as far as that goes. But it's much more easier to do this. Much more easier. It's easier to do this with.
Just think, you could be a Jets fan, you could be a Patriots fan, you could be a Dolphins fan.
Oh yeah, right.
And hell, if you could be an Eagles fan, which is more miserable than anything right now. I mean, it's
look at Jerry bringing it home, baby.
We'll wake up tomorrow morning, and
my man.
The only thing that I'm going to dread about tomorrow is. I was trying to find my Stephen A inside of me. Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson. Who's the real MVP?
Yep.
That's the only thing I'm dreading is listening to the low-hanging fruit Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen commentary tomorrow. And then of course, once we get to Tuesday, it's the Diggs Bowl. So we'll get to talk about Stephon all week.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I'm going to get us out of here, Jerry. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been tuned into the Overreaction Buffalo post-game show on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, powered by Believe. My name is Joe Miller. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired. That guy right there, Jerry Ostrowski. You can find him on Twitter at Ostrowski_Big O. It was so good to hang out with you guys. The Buffalo Bills, as we've been talking about this whole episode, lost tonight in this football game to the Baltimore Ravens. They go to Houston next week with a record of 3-1. I'm to Jerry's point. They are in first place of the AFC East. So this is just one game. There's a whole lot of games left. But for me, for Jerry, for John, for all of us here at the Overreaction Sports Network, it's good to have you. Appreciate you guys. Love you. Go Bills.
Much love. Go Bills.
Go Bills.